Welcome, Raw Onion listeners, and now viewers. We're here. We are visual, and listen, we wanted to do this because we wanted to showcase not only our guests, but we wanted to start looking at each other in the eyeballs, right? We're not connecting enough out there. Visual is more powerful than auditory. People might argue about that, but we're going to try both. So, hello. Welcome to the Raw Onion. I am your host, Stephanie Ohanessian. Behind the scenes is our genius tech and producer, Yoshie Barnett. And, before I introduce this lovely lady to my side, let's break down the story just a bit, okay? There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from achieving everything that you were supposed to want, right? Our guest today knows that exhaustion intimately. Our guest is one of 45 million first-generation Americans out there today who did everything right by everyone's definition, especially those of us who do come from immigrant families. We spend a lot, maybe even half of our lives, honoring that dream that people before us sacrificed so deeply for that we faithfully forget to ask if it fits us. And that day eventually came when our guest dared to ask herself a different set of questions altogether. Not, what should I do? But, what do I actually value? What do I want? And those questions changed everything. So those questions forged her path into something that was and is undeniably hers. Grab something to drink. This one goes deep. This is part 2 of our June series, Women in Business. And this episode is all about alchemizing the American dream. Reece Soltani started a neighborhood sandwich shop and is building a path to become a franchise business and plans to bring their in-house made spreads, which sound incredible, into retail. I will be their first customer. These days, she's focused on building something profitable, people first, and scalable. Prior to Chachi's, she spent nearly a decade as a consultant and strategic advisor, working with Fortune 500 companies and executive teams to build new products, programs, and growth strategies inside large organizations. So after years of operating in that space, she burned out, like many of us, and made a hard pivot into entrepreneurship by opening Chachi's while pregnant, learning the business by doing it herself. So, Reece, my friend, welcome to the Raw Onion. We have so much to talk about.
We sure do. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. It's an honor.
Well, the sentiment is shared. And for the viewers and listeners at home, Reece and Yoshie and I have chatted before. So we have so much depth that we can bring, so much richness. But we'll start here. So let's say before the timelines, before the titles, because you are an incredibly successful woman in business, which is our theme this month. Describe what success was supposed to look like for you and, let's say, for you in your family. Not what you wanted, but what was expected. What was that image? Set us up here.
So I'm Middle Eastern and Persian, and there's a old adage that it goes like, you can be anything you want to be, according to a Persian parent, as long as it's a lawyer, a doctor, an architect, a dentist, or some other really hard craft. And I did none of those, so I was already out of the spectrum of what they had hoped for. I mean, I recall I had got my master's degree, and my dad came to me and said, it's still not too late to be a doctor if you'd like to go back to medical school. And the master's degree, was a master's of science, almost killed me. So the vision really was get into like what they would think of as a foolproof job. A doctor is always employed, a lawyer is always employed. Sure. It's always about stability and a high paycheck. I think that's very common amongst first generation kids, hearing a similar message. And so for them, it was really that. I went a little different. I found my own way of getting a stable job and building a career, still within the guidelines of what they had hoped for. They didn't really understand what I did as a consultant. but they understood that I got a good paycheck, and so that was good enough, and that I
Yep.
was doing well, and so I had operated at that pace for quite some time, maybe close to 10 years, not always in consulting, but as an advisor or in a strategic advising role, whether I was in a corporation or a nonprofit or doing it on the for-profit side.
Well, and listen, before we even go further, there's no shade that towards anyone, right? The immigrant experience is fascinating and beautiful because
Totally.
the one thing we can all collectively say is that there was a lot of sacrifice that was made for a better life because what was experienced was pretty darn bad. Bad
Yeah,
enough to where the risk of coming and starting from scratch outweighed that constant survival and hypervigilance in wherever they were coming from, right?
completely. Yeah.
So, and I'm nodding because I too am Middle Eastern background. I get it. I understand. And it's a pressure. It's a pressure that is attached to a lot of emotion, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And so that being said, the pressure on you, and maybe call me out if if I'm speaking out of turn, but was there a pressure on you to say, okay, well, if I'm gonna not be doctor, lawyer, engineer, blah blah blah, I'm gonna go this route.
Mhm.
Was there a fear of failure at any point? Did you feel like you had something to prove? Like, hey, guys, no, you can trust me on this?
Yeah. Oh my god, I still feel that way, to be honest,
Yeah.
even in starting my own business. I think I felt like I needed to justify every move and prove that I had already thought 5 steps ahead if I wasn't taking a very traditional route.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of
Fair.
how I would sort of like talk them into like being comfortable with what I wanted to do. A lot of the pressure came from getting higher education.
Yeah.
So going to college wasn't an option. I never was inside of a family that said, consider a vocation or consider, many other viable routes to
Right.
having a steady life. It was you graduate, you get a bachelor's degree from a very good school, and then you immediately go get a master's degree. And so it's just interesting to sort of see the journey and how it went along. So yeah, we did a lot of that. I did a lot of justification along the way, and ultimately it was that I had proved that I could rise through the ranks in whatever it was that I was doing. I had steadily moved up the corporate ladder and it was fine and I was doing it and I got a good paycheck
Yeah.
and I was making more money than both my parents had ever made combined. And so to them they were
Awesome.
like, she's got it,
Yeah.
whatever. We don't need to understand necessarily what it is that she does, but we know that she's doing it well. And there's
And
a way
she's
up.
safe.
I'm safe. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Are you safe? Do you have a plan? Is there a
Right.
retirement? Do you have savings? And so yeah, that was really what kind of just allowed it to be settled.
Well, so you got the education, you have this incredibly prestigious job, you found a partner. All of these things are ticking box, 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 box. From the outside, you were literally the American dream come true. What was that actually like for you to be living inside that picture?
Yeah. By the time I had left my corporate career, the way I would describe it was soul sucking. I felt so unhappy every single day and I couldn't figure out why. Part of it was I was really good at certain things that helped me move up the ranks. I think anyone that works in a corporate setting recognizes that if you wanna move up in a corporate setting, half your job is learning how to market yourself and what you're really good at, and quote,
Whew.
unquote, "branding who you are within an organization so people know what to come to you for as an expert," and that was something I came very easily to me, but all the other stuff that came along with it in terms of being an advisor and whatnot, like sitting in spreadsheets and, like,
Right.
long meetings and bureaucracy, etcetera, it just took everything out of me, and so I was very just I felt very unhappy. I felt purposeless for a while. I was doing really well in, corporate strategic advising,
Yeah.
but like, I loved the people I worked with, I loved the organization I was at, but the work itself felt meaningless. We worked with a lot of financial institutions, like big Fortune 500 companies, a lot of healthcare institutions. And even if I was doing a project that felt like this is a big deal, like food insecurity was a big focus of mine, it just felt like I could never make a dent in it. and that was
That's
ultimately what it
interesting.
was that got me to leave. In my last role, I went back into nonprofit sector and I was advising the president on the strategy team, as a part of the leadership of a strategy team. And this was $1 billion organization doing really like hands-on work. And I
Globally.
felt, yeah, globally.
Okay.
Globally, we were doing hands-on work for refugees. And I was like, I am at the top of the table for $1 billion organization that's doing serious work. And I still feel like I can't make a dent in it. So why am I here? Like I'm advising the president of this organization or his key advisors. And I felt like I could not make a dent in it. And so I was like, I think I want to go local. I don't care for this grand stage anymore and like weaving in and out of an organization and having to fight for every little thing and to just still feel like at the end of the day, like, what have I actually spent my time doing? Building another PowerPoint deck, which again, necessary pieces of
Yeah.
of the work, right? There are people that are career longevity focused that are doing truly God's work in these organizations. I didn't have the personality to stick around to wait 20 years to see my impact. I wanted to see it now. And so it just wasn't for me. It really drained me.
Can you explain that a little to me? And I'm sure I'm not the only one wondering, but I'm nodding because what you said about not making a dent, that struck me.
Yeah,
There's a method to the madness, right, in all business structures.
totally.
Corporations have a lot of issues, but there is a structure. And that's always kind of what I would give a corporate institution a little credit for, to say, with all the issues, at least you know who to go to for what. There's a system in place in some capacity.
Hmm.
When you're dealing with a $1 billion company, when you're dealing with a nonprofit, when you're dealing with human beings on the other end that are desperate for a meal, essentially,
Yeah.
what was it that you, at the top of the totem pole there, essentially, with sitting on the right hand side of the biggest decision maker in this organization,
Hmm.
why didn't you or couldn't you make it? What was that block that
Yeah.
wouldn't let you move forward with that?
There's so many forces at play. And
Yeah.
like the organization that I was at, I would argue is one of the best in the game. They use nearly 90 cents to every dollar directly for their constituents. And that's like pretty much
Wow.
unheard of in
It is unheard of.
nonprofit. And so, like, I was at the right table. There were
Yeah.
people with vision. There were people that were incredibly educated, incredibly capable at the right organization, spending the money the right way. But there's so many, like, if we're talking about refugees, like, there's so many global forces at bay. There's politicians that are happening. There's geopolitics that,
Right.
at the time, the Trump administration had just come back in to office. And so, like, a lot of funding was getting
Right.
stripped. Like,
Yep.
there are so many grander, bigger things that were the challenges that you're just trying to navigate in order to serve that one individual. And a lot of it they did successfully. Like part of why I felt that way, I think, was not just necessarily the forces that were at play that were constantly navigating. That's not new to the
Sure.
nonprofit space or any space really. You're always competing with interests. But part of it for me, I think, was that I was at such a high level strategic thinking role that it was all analytics. It didn't feel, I couldn't
Gotcha.
actually see anything that was happening either, like unless I flew to a specific location and spent a week on the ground
Right.
with one of our teams, there, but that just wasn't my role. And so much of my career had also been within that sort of space. I think in the
Mhm.
private sector was very different. It was more so, I felt at least, decisions were made off of budget, but also off of interpolitical plays. So, for example, they would hire a group of consultants, i.e., me. We would come in, they would spend $1 million, $2 million with us. We would provide a playbook of what we think they should do. Classic
Yep.
consultant scenario case. And one out of those 100 things gets done and then it sits on a shelf because of some higher up that decided that money was going to go somewhere else or their promotion depended on it. And so they're not going to go this route, they're going to go this route. Whatever it might have been, there's so many things that were out of our control, even when we put our
Yeah.
best foot and best work forward. And so I found that I experienced it in different ways in the public sector versus the private sector. And the common thread was I think I was at too high of a level in terms of the type of work to really feel like I could actually make a dent in it. Because there might be people on the ground. In fact, I know there's people on the ground working directly with these populations that could see their impact every single day on things and projects that had nothing to do with the budgets or strategic thinking that I was doing at the organizational level. So, it just sort of depends on the type of career path you pick, et cetera, and what type of dent we're talking about. I was sitting at a $1 billion organization at the top. And so my ego was make a big dent in it, like you expect
Interesting
to see
point.
big impact. And I didn't see it. I didn't get to experience it. And so I was like, what am I doing? Why am I spending my time this way?
Do you think, because that, I mean, what you're saying is actually really profound.
Thank you.
This well, it is true. Because there's, and I want to ask about this idea of burnout, right?
Mhm.
It's a big one. It's a big topic. It's an epidemic at this point. By the way, folks, it's gone up 15% this year alone in the
Wow.
US. We're just at the beginning of June, and
Wow.
it just to paint a picture of making a dent, right? What is denting us? I mean, there's a reciprocal relationship here with work and impact and your capacity to handle stress. Do you think, because there's a stress cycle, and in sort of my area of business and in Yoshie's as well, in order to move past a stress cycle, you have to close it out, right? And I'm making this sort of
Mm.
circular gesture because you have to finish that moment and then you can move past it. And why I'm bringing this up is because it sounds very similar to what you're describing with impact, right? That there was a high touch level, but you're not coming full circle to see the tangible results. And so you're
Yeah,
always left in this sort of, did I accomplish something? Did I actually
totally.
do the job? And if there's a question mark there, you're not getting even a dopamine hit, right? Because you're not
Exactly.
saying ding, 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 mission
We
accomplished.
did
You
it.
don't know.
That's
And
right.
so, right, with these huge companies where there's a big, and even again at the top of the totem pole where you were sitting, there's still a lack of tangibility where you stay in your lane, you do your job, and you hope that somewhere on the other end it gets spit out with some kind of good ending.
Yes.
Do you
Completely.
see the
Oh,
similarity
entirely.
between that?
I mean, I think, when you leave a corporate career, everyone's like, let's get a goodbye coffee and have a goodbye chat. And you're just triggering my memory here. One of the things I said the most to people when they asked me why am I leaving, because I left voluntarily, I was doing just fine. I really had this desire to do something tangible. I said,
Yeah,
I want to build something with my hands and
yeah,
feel it and literally be able to see what I just made. I can't like, I love a PowerPoint deck, love a good PowerPoint deck, but that was, like, my whole job. I was like, "I
right.
can't make another deck. I'm gonna lose my
Please,
mind if I do another PowerPoint
you
deck and
can't
just
eat a
send it
deck.
off to some leadership person."
Yeah,
And so, for me, it really was about the tangibility, is that I need to actively feel it with my hands and know what I am doing day to day and see that progression because of the effort I put in, and was there an equal amount of impact based off of the effort that I put in? Right, and so that it's just such a hodgepodge when you're in a corporation. You can't It's very hard to thread that correlation between
yeah,
how did I spend my day and
agreed.
what actually happened because of how I spent my day. People go years without knowing that answer, and I was like, that's just ultimately, it just didn't align with my personality. I think that's
Yeah.
really what it boiled down to, was like, I just can't operate that way. It's like you said, a dopamine hit. I hadn't gotten a dopamine hit in a very long time, and
I
I was like,
believe it.
time to go.
I believe it, and I think you're speaking on behalf of millions of people, especially now, because when we're bringing up this sort of alchemization of the American dream, we are all kind of collectively there are mass issues right now. We all know
Very.
this, but what am I doing, right? And of course, yes, we need to pay the bills. We have families to feed. We
Yeah,
have all of the things understood. But that aside, it's a human design that we want to see the fruits of our labor, and we want to say, hey, I helped be of service to whatever that may be, right?
that's right.
And
It's Oh, sorry, please go
no,
ahead.
please, please, please.
I was just gonna say how ironic it is, I studied poverty, international relations and
Interesting.
poverty, And then I went into a job immediately around health and food security. And then I went into another job that focused on that. And then I went into a job around helping refugees and all the programming that went around it. So you could say I was really like focused on quote unquote doing the good work, right? The
Yeah.
humanitarian work. I feel, no, I know I have made more impact in my community running a sandwich shop than I did studying and getting a master's degree in those programs and doing
Yep.
that work for 10 years. I have made more impact in people's lives running a neighborhood sandwich shop, which is it's like diabolical to even hear it come out of my mouth. Like who would have thought? I didn't think I would end up here. Like, what am I doing? It's
Well,
crazy.
this is an iconic statement because listen, maybe I sound like a jerk, but a lot of us are arrogant. We want to do something that's a
Totally.
little flashy, right? We want to have the corner office. We want to drive the G-Wagon, whatever. Many, many people do.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you're going, and this is where a beautiful segue into the sandwich shop, right? Because what are we redefining here?
Mhm.
It's you're redefining identity, you're redefining values, you're redefining a new sense of how you're giving back to the world, to the community. So this is very inspiring to kind of take everything down for a minute and say, wait a minute, where am I really, really making an impact? So
Mhm.
let's go back to this gorgeous door that you've just opened. So from nonprofit, $1 billion,
Yep.
lack of making the impact, you're burning out to a crisp. And then,
And then I had an identity crisis.
oh, one of those.
I remember it so distinctly where I had just closed out a project on data governance, like a topic that snooze, right? It was such a big project. It was huge. I was running a few. And then they were like, great, you close that out. Let's give you a brand new project that has to do with like strategy planning or something. And when they said that, my heart immediately tightened. I remember the feeling and panic set in. And I was like, like I started hyperventilating a little bit, like, I can't do another project. I can't keep doing
Yep.
this.
The body
And
knows.
right. And so like, I was meeting with my director where she was about to debrief me. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm putting in my 2 weeks today. It was like literally the
Wow.
next day. Like I had an identity crisis. Like I went to my husband that evening and I was like, can we afford for me to quit my job? I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I just know that I can't do this anymore. And I was like, and not this has to be a good enough answer right now. Like, that was it. And because he was like, well,
Wow.
what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. Not this.
Not
Like,
this.
not this was my answer for a very long time. And I think
Wow.
Elizabeth Gilbert put that phrase in my head. It's like, I don't know, not this is a good
Yep.
enough answer. And he was like, yeah, you can do it. Go for it. Quit. And this is, I mean, when
Ooh.
they say you choosing the right partner is the most important financial decision of your life and every other type of important decision of your life, it is so beyond. Like
Girl, this is why I'm still
that
single.
was
I have
it.
not
Oh,
found
no,
I have
don't.
not found
Oh,
that person.
truly, and don't because it's not worth it. It take you in I've been in many relationships where it took me in the other direction. And my husband, when we met, he was still finishing his PhD and when I was a consultant. And so like for the first 2 years of our relationship, I paid for everything. And then he didn't have a dime to his name when I
Right.
met him. And then when I said, "Can I quit my job?" we truly flipped and switched sides where he
That's a
started
team.
paying for everything. It was a
Yep.
team. So I quit and then I said, I want to start my own business. We've been toying with this idea for a very long time. Even on our honeymoon, we started realizing we're never going to be financially free and have control over our day if we don't start our own business.
It
Because
is the truth.
as you rise up through the ranks in corporate America, I don't care if you're in a nonprofit, whatever corporate setting you're in, your pay bump tends to be incremental and your responsibility tends to be exponential. And
Amen.
and then you just keep tweaking that ladder all the way up until 20 years later, you don't have no control over your day. You're in meetings back to back, putting out fires, and you're miserable. And I was like, that's not what I want. I saw my directors and I was like, I don't want your life. So when we quit, all of that to say, we said we have to start a business. We started thinking about maybe we should open a cafe. We had just moved to Los Angeles, where his family is. We're in San
Mhm,
Pedro, right on the peninsula.
mhm.
It's one of the few sort of, let's say, quote, underdeveloped places left on the coastline in
Yep.
California.
Beautiful
So
area.
gorgeous, still relatively affordable. A lot of that's changing now for better or worse. But, we came in having lived in a lot of like major metropolitan cities. I had lived in New York, I had lived in
Yep.
London, I had lived in all these places. And so my husband had been in Tokyo and Berlin, and like we had exposure to a lot
A lot.
of interesting cuisine and like really like in these metropolitan cities, if you're not great, you don't survive. So like your standards go
Are
up. We became
very high, yes.
very high. We were suddenly coffee snobs. I'm like,
Right.
oh, what is this
As you should be.
banner? And so when we came here, we were like, wow, this is such an incredible community, such an incredible place. What a land of opportunity. A lot of that still hasn't come here yet. That sort of third wave metropolitanism that
Mhm.
already exists in the rest of LA.
And a third space,
And
mind
a third
you.
space, truly a third space was missing in this place. And so we just started looking. And this was like 2023. Interest rates were insane. It was like
Mhm.
9%. And I was like, not the time to take out a loan. We
Right.
went through like a lot of different cycles, and almost everything that we wanted to do would have cost us over $1 million because I was thinking so grand. I was like, I want this, I want this, I want the cafe to look like this, and we have to have this gorgeous garden and blah, blah, blah. And I got my first dose of entrepreneurialism, which is what is the least sexy thing you can do to get your business started? Everybody was like, anyone that I knew that was a successful entrepreneur was like, that's too grand. Start smaller, roll it back, roll it back. And I should have known this because my career was in innovation and coming up with products and businesses for other businesses.
But isn't it hard to
But
see
when
when it's
it's your
yourself?
own, it's so hard. It's
What
so hard.
is that? Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I hear
So
you.
I took a giant humbling pill. My sister-in-law said, because we were living with her at the time when we moved here, she was like, listen, there's a liquor store 2 doors down. There's a counter there that hasn't been used for 7, 8 years. It used to be a sandwich spot. This neighborhood loved it. Why don't you go consider that? Just go look at it, see if you like it. And so my husband and I like walked 2 doors down from where we were living at the time. And we looked at it, and the entire space was like ready to go. It was up to code. The sinks were there. The water heater was there. It was just being used as empty storage. It looked awful inside of this store.
Okay.
And so I pulled the landlord aside. I was like, is he here? Let me chat with him. We had a conversation. And on the spot, I was like, I think we can do something here. Would you be willing to rent this space to us? Because my husband looked at it and he was like, I know what the menu can be. He's the chef. I know nothing about cooking. It's all him. And so we went back and forth. The landlord was like, hey, I want to help you out. It's such an old school town. Our lease is like some generic thing printed off of the internet from the 90s, like very casual handshake.
I love
Here's,
it.
like, let me help you. Let's do a simple lease. Gave us a good deal. And, within 2 months, we had done a couple upgrades and gotten our approvals from the health department. And like, we were in business,
Oh my
like
God.
debt free, which was like huge. And the community showed up. Like they showed up. We had a line out the door our first day when we opened.
Were you prepared for it?
No, my God, it was an absolute it was the show. I don't know if I can say that. Like, it was crazy. People were waiting like 25 minutes for a sandwich. We had
Oh
no
my
idea what we
God.
were doing. I was 3 months pregnant. Like my husband was like calling, like blocking his calendar, because he was working. He has a 9 to
Yeah.
5,
Oh my
So
God.
it
I
was
forgot about that.
it was chaos. I mean, we were only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday for like the first 6 months, and people really liked it. So then they started getting pissed off that we weren't open more. And so and then that's how you learn as an entrepreneur.
Oh
You
my
just
God.
spiral with it and you figure it
Yep.
out along the way.
Yes,
And so
ma'am.
here we are. I don't even remember what your original question was, Stephanie, but here we are.
Well, listen, I like how you paint pictures because, and people, please, I'm asking you, not even as a favor, it's a must. You have to follow Chachi's on Instagram or all the socials because I'm obsessed. I told Reece before we even started recording, like, I am so invested in this shop. And there's a magic about, and maybe this is part of what you were describing earlier, this making an impact with the community, but you're also sharing the vulnerability, which I
Yeah.
think, again, there's a whole, now it's sort of trendy, but it's easier said than done
Yeah.
to show the steps of a process that you're trying to bring to life in real time, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things are hard to admit, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. This just took me 6 months. I thought it would take me a week.
Yeah.
So to say that out loud and to say, "Hey guys, I'm building this story for you as I am also building the sandwich for you." There's a lot more that's going into these 2 slices of bread, and I think people want to know that.
Yeah.
So even the anger of people saying, "Hey, why aren't you open?" That's a great problem to have.
It was a great problem to have. Yeah. I was like, okay, I guess we're on to something here.
Well, okay, this is kind of going on a tangent, but let me. I want your thoughts on
I
this.
love a tangent.
I love a good
Let's
tangent
go.
too. Let's take the road. Let's take that road and be wizards in the wild together. You know, food insecurity. Your previous experience, very well versed, an expert in that field. And now, again, using the word alchemizing it into something very, very focused, very community driven, but also the two mirroring each other. You're feeding people, you're
Hmm.
giving people this sustenance that is a universal thing. We all enjoy a good meal. We all love to be fed, and this is what we need, right? It's this universal act of care.
That's I hadn't seen that parallel, but yeah, I really like that. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad it's landing because as kids of immigrants, especially Middle
Mm.
Eastern, we know very well, you know where I'm going with this. You will never leave a Middle Eastern home hungry.
Nope,
You will crawl out because you've been so well fed.
that's correct.
Right? There are no lies there.
Yes.
It is in the DNA. And not only that, it's good food. I mean, it is good food. So it's an experience of the purest form of love that you can offer someone. Anybody who comes into your home will be taken care of in that way. Do you ever link the dots between all of these?
Oh
And
man.
tell me about it.
It's so funny because as brown women, we have been, for lack of better words, quote unquote, trained or bred to serve, right? That has always been the
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I have done is rebelled against that. But it's so funny that you're putting it this way because, like, it's still coming out, like in the
That
business
is.
that I've chosen to build. Yeah, it's come out in a lot of different ways. Just even food, knowing food insecurity as a subject matter, and then like having sort of done this adjacent work around food my whole career, a lot of the way that we thought about, like, even curating the menu is,
Yeah.
am I competitive against fast food chains, but healthy ingredients? Like, that's a lot of what I spend my time thinking about. And now I think about it necessarily from like
Yeah.
a business standpoint, like, am I recession proof? That's a big question I
Sure.
ask myself a
Well,
lot.
it's mandatory.
Right, but at the same time, we definitely pride ourselves and make it a part of our brand's DNA to show that, like, freshness is a part of what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
bringing fresh fruits and vegetables. It's easier said than done in California, rather
Sure.
across the rest of the country. But we're lucky to have an abundance of fresh food around us, but it's definitely been a part of the way that we think about it. And now the way that we care for people comes through in our customer service and hospitality. I love to brag about it. One of the things I am most proud about are our reviews. If you go to Yelp and Google, people talk about our hospitality over and over again. Bar none, we win on that. There's no question. There's never going to be a time that you come in to see us and leave unhappy, even if you've come in irate or we've done something wrong, right? And so it comes through in food. And like one of my favorite stories is, like, we had a woman who was like heavily pregnant. She had just gotten her nails done. She came in to get a sandwich. And I was at the register and I was like, "Oh my God, your nails look fabulous. They are incredible. Like, where did you get them done?" And she started crying and said, "Oh my God, really? I hate them. I showed the nail tech what I wanted. It was this." And she showed me her phone with a photo of it. And she's like, "And she gave me this instead," and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Honey, they look amazing. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah.
Go grab a dessert out of that fridge. What do you want me to, like, it was like truly like just like it was a moment where I was like, I get to nourish this other to be mom because
Ugh.
she's having a terrible day. And I was like, I got a chocolate mousse with your name on it, honey. Let's
Yep.
go, you know?
Oh
And so,
God.
like, in that
It
way,
changed
like,
everything for
it
her.
changed everything for her. It changed her day. It made me feel good. Like, it has been so interesting to watch the way that food can really flip someone's day, you know, if you just like meet them where they're at.
You know, I'm getting little goosebumps here because I don't know, this is such a beautiful thing you're bringing up. People have become really hard in the last few
Mhm.
years. And I'm not blaming, I mean, myself included, right? We're all on guard. We're
Totally.
all waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're all, in fight mode constantly, ready to attack, like assuming that someone's going to like what there's always something, right?
Totally.
It's not a gentle society anymore.
Yeah.
And for you to have this sort of awareness and take action on, and it very naturally, very sincerely from your heart to say, knowing intrinsically, this is going to make somebody smile.
Yeah. I mean, it's that what else are we doing if that's not the point,
Hey,
you know? Like truly cuz listen, I can be a jerk and, flip someone off too
we
when
all
they cut me
can.
off in the car and whatever, but like for me it I left the career, so I was very intentional about what type of environment do I want to craft to be in, because if I'm
Right,
going to build a business, I get to make the rules. And I was like,
right.
I want a place where people feel at ease to come to work.
Yeah,
They don't have to feel like there is like weird infighting, right? So we have a very transparent way that we talk about everything with everybody. I want people to feel incredibly welcome as if they've just walked into a home, right? That's
yep,
the Middle Eastern in
yep,
me. Like, please
yep,
come in, let me get you some tea. And I want people to have a bite of something that they're still thinking about the next day. And so those are the only things I focus on. Like one thing that I was just training one of my newer employees about this is like we take people's names, we don't give them ticket numbers. I want to know your name at the register,
genius.
right? And I'm going to look you in the eye at the register and say, so nice to meet you, Stephanie. I'm Reese. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Yep,
Okay, Stephanie, your
yep,
order will be ready in 5 minutes. I have now said your name 2 or 3 times before you
yep,
even left the register. My person that's making the food is right there, and it says is now going to start picking up the conversation with you and saying, "Hey, Stephanie, how's your day? What are you doing today?"
yep,
Okay, Stephanie, 3 more minutes. Your sandwich will be ready. Stephanie, your sandwich is ready.
yep,
Great seeing you. We've said your name 6 or 7 times before you even left.
yep.
That is how we train our customer service, and it's very intentional because I want it to feel like a place where you feel like family when we don't even know each other.
Right.
Like I wish more places like that existed, and it's just not the case anymore. And so I told myself, I was like, if we're going to franchise, great, but it's not going to be like me walking into a McDonald's. That's never going to be the
Yep.
feeling that you get when you come to us.
Well, and you're touching on a lot of things that are very current right now in people wanting to feel something again. There is a huge loneliness epidemic. We
Right.
know that. And so having a place where you can go and immediately, even if it's the first time coming in, you feel like you're a friend, you feel like you're welcome, you're wanted,
Yes.
and you're getting fed in a really beautiful and sincere way. These are all metrics that are human metrics. These are not bottom line metrics.
That's right.
And so, again, and maybe I'm overusing the word alchemy here, but there's something that is so lacking in today's working structure, right? And economical structure. And I think it's this heart, soul,
Hmm.
going back to basics. And, even again, linking this immigrant narrative, what a beautiful, beautiful full circle moment where there's the fear from your family of, oh, I just want you to be safe and
Yeah.
successful because we were not safe. We're wanting to make sure that you are
Yep.
a great, beautiful survival instincts at their finest. You making a different decision and a different iteration of what that is, and look at how it's ending up.
Yeah.
That it is safety that you're receiving, but you're also now paying it forward too. And
That's a nice
it's a
way to
big
put it.
deal.
Thank you. I didn't think about it that way. It's so funny because, like, you know, tell a couple of immigrant parents you're leaving a secure paycheck to go do
Oh,
something that you don't know what it is yet. Like the look on their faces, like it is very hard
it is hard.
to understand, right? It's like I think we saw it from two different sides of the same coin, which is my parents were like, "Okay, we've done our job. We got her to get the education. She figured it out. She's got a good steady paycheck,
Yeah.
etc." And we've accomplished the American dream, right? That's
Yeah.
their narrative. My narrative was, isn't it an insult to the American dream that they sacrifice so much for me to be happy and I'm stuck in a job that makes me so miserable?
There you
Isn't
go.
it my duty to go do something else to honor and respect the work that they have put in so that I don't have to necessarily, live in that way? And so it was so funny
Yeah.
to like everyone's got the same goal, right? And there's
Yep.
just so much to think about. Yeah, it still just strikes me, I guess, a little bit and how different you can imagine what the American dream is and where you're placing your value. And you had said something else about how, bringing back heart and soul into the work that you're doing isn't
Yeah.
necessarily a bottom line metric, which is so true when you look at, the way that people actually look at business. Like, because we ultimately have in mind to sell our business down the line, right? And I'm looking into like, okay, well, how do investors think about buying businesses now so that I can build it in that way?
Yeah.
But it's so funny when we say it's not part of the bottom line. It has actually turned into my bottom line. San Pedro is a sandwich town. They are a self-proclaimed sandwich town. There's 7 or 8 sandwich shops in this town that are institutions, have been here for 40, 50 years. We're the new kids on the block and we're winning. Like,
There you go.
it's crazy to me that, and I genuinely believe, yes, the product is excellent, but I genuinely believe it's also because people feel welcome when they come in. Like, the things that people have told me across the register in the 3 or 4-minute interaction that we have had is astronomical. Like, deep, dark secrets like you would tell your barber or something, and you're
I
sitting in
believe
a
it.
chair for, like, a
I
long
believe it.
time. And so I think that it's turned into our bottom line, so much so that we
Yeah.
can open a new shop, like, within 2 years. It's
Yep.
crazy. And so it's really just proving, I think, what you're saying is, like, people are so starved for connection. People are so starved to feel welcome, to feel like there's a place that they can actually just sort of, get a smile from when they walk in.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna say like, "Hey, we're retail, like, smile, how's your day going?" type of thing, but, like, an authenticity behind it,
Authenticity.
right? Is it I try to train my staff that way where, yeah, there's certain things we wanna do, like say the person's name back, move back past transaction, but I also try to train them to say, talk in a way that feels comfortable to you, So like a little bit cliche, the guys on my team will say, anyone that walks in with like an LA Dodgers or like a Knicks shirt or something, they're connecting in that way with those customers. And I
Yeah.
connected with the mom who was having a
That's right.
bad day, right? And so like it just sort of depends on the way that you think about it. But it's been remarkable to see how heart and soul has actually translated into a really good bottom line for us.
Well, and isn't that how all really, really solid businesses succeed when at the end of the day, there's more to it than just the product or the service? It's
Totally.
how it's
The how.
executed, right?
Yeah.
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 And, you know, in terms of what you're building, what you have built, and touch a lot on the community. This is a question that comes up in my mind a lot. And I know you and I had gone over it when we had spoken last time, but this showing up for people
Mhm.
or how the community shows up for you, how your partner, how your family, these are things too that, let's say listeners here have dreams. They are ready to alchemize something for themselves. I guarantee you this is going to speak to a lot of people because there's a lot of people that want to do something meaningful. But it does take a village, right? So how was that experience for you? And would you or do you envision this story being different if you hadn't had that level of support? And what would you do if you hadn't? How would you advise people to follow this heart led success story that they want to make for themselves if maybe they don't have that squad behind them?
Mm. Oh, that's so hard.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'll say this in 2 parts. 1, Chachi's would not exist without my family, period. There's no way that we would have been able to pull off having a baby and starting a business at the
right.
same time. Like, no questions asked. My mom is the MVP of this, She gave us the startup capital as a wedding gift and said, "You probably need to buy a house or do something." We held on to it for a long time, and I went back and I asked her permission. I said, "Are you comfortable with me using the money that you gifted us to start a business instead of doing the quote unquote secure thing and buy a house or an apartment,
Right.
which is an
Right.
incredibly privileged position to be in to begin with. So let's just say that outright. But my mom was a teacher and scraped by for every little penny that she saved. So for me, it was a very big deal. And
Yeah.
even though she had already gifted me the money, I went back to her 2 years later and said, what do you think?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can't fumble this money. So that's one. She's here twice a week watching my baby. I have two sister-in-laws that are within a mile of each other that can take my kid at any moment. They all got Serve Safe certified, which is a
Oh,
requirement to
wow.
work in a
Yeah.
restaurant to jump in, whenever I needed it. And like a bunch of their
Amazing.
friends also got Serve Safe certified. And then they
I'm Surf Safe certified if you need
are you?
help. Yes.
Their kids got Serve Safe certified. My nieces, my nephews, they came to work for me. They were my first employees. And so it like genuinely it took a village.
Yeah.
The reason we had a line out the door the first day was because my sisters know everyone in town and were talking about it for months.
Yeah.
Are you coming? Are you coming? They were putting the word out. Hey, we're going to go. Are you coming? Like it was something that like they just were going on and on about. Like there's no way I created that line out the door myself that first date. We
Yeah.
had just moved to San Pedro. I didn't know anybody. We were starting a business. I didn't really know what this town was about yet. It was quite bold, actually, a little bit delusional to just come into a town and start a business. So,
But you did it.
which I think is actually necessary, to be honest. I think that if you're going to overthink what the next step is, you've already talked yourself out of it. So don't. Just dive right in and you will figure it out. Like
Delusion can be healthy.
I genuinely think it is. Yeah, not knowing what I was in for is why we've gotten so far,
Yeah. Fair.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
for,
yes.
for people that don't have the level of support that I have, which I genuinely attribute to why we're at where we're at, it's still entirely possible. I think what I've also come to learn as a business owner is once you start creating and putting something out there, your people find you. And it's just
I believe
like,
that.
I mean, look at you and me, like we have
Yep.
found each other through entrepreneurship, through different groups and
Yep.
networks that we've been in. And it's like, it's been remarkable to see how many people are just interested in seeing what someone else is creating.
It's
Being
so
a,
true.
right? Being a creator is like a very specific type of network. And like, there's a very interesting sort of like respect that comes with it
Yep.
where it's very vulnerable to put yourself out there like that. Like my sales
Terrifying.
a diary, it's like I'm putting out there. I hope you like it, kind of thing.
It's like reading your diary naked.
Literally, yeah. And so, like, other people that are in the gauntlet doing their own thing recognize it. That's why they say real sees real or real recognizes
Yep.
real, right? And you start coming to each other, and I have found community and support in that way too. So I would say it's not impossible if you don't have a village behind you. Just start doing the thing that you want to do, and your people will find you and find ways to uplift you. Some of my best friends often they say when you have entrepreneurship, you lose a lot of friends and whatnot, and that's partially been true too. But I've also had
Yeah.
a lot of friends that have kind of converted the way that we interact in order to support me. I have friends
Yeah.
in the Netherlands who were donating to my, capital raising campaign for my shop on money that they're never going to get to use, but they were like, I'm in it with you. Let's go,
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's just, I think it really, you want to know who you really are and who your friends really are, start a business.
Start a business. Oh boy. There will be 24 that'll drop to the curb
Yeah.
and you'll never hear or see them again.
Right.
And then there will be people, and I vouch for every word you're saying, that it will be a shock who
Yeah.
will come and be your biggest cheerleader
Yeah.
from a very sincere place. I mean, even Yoshie and I, right? We were, again, same kind of story, schooling situation together, getting educated for coaching certification. There's nothing else that is really attaching us to that time anymore, except the fact that her and I clicked,
Yep.
supported each other, saw each other. I mean, really just mirroring exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Respected each other. And there is no way this project could be done without either one of us. I know maybe 0.5% of what she knows on the production end.
Yeah.
Total genius.
Yin and
And
yang.
it's a yin and yang. So,
Yeah.
it's true. And having that kind of, not even a faith, it's just this cultivating of curiosity, right? This don't sit in isolation, go out there into the world and feed people, care for people, talk to people, ask them about what they're doing. You just will never not be surprised at what comes back to you.
Yeah.
And as we wrap this up in alchemizing the American dream as a woman in business, I have such profound admiration and respect for you and what you've accomplished. For, I mean, the entire journey that you've taken, it all matters and it all makes so much sense. And I love what you're doing. It's a big, big deal.
Thank you. Likewise. Truly,
We're all
likewise.
trying,
We're
right?
all
But
trying. We're all doing our best.
we're all doing our best. It's all we can do. And as we wrap up, if you could tell anyone listening, anyone watching today, what would be step one in terms of if that little seed is planted and people might think, okay, there might be something that I really want to do here.
Mm-hmm.
What's step one? And what is your one takeaway for, let's say, pushing through that? It's more than fear. It's more than risk. It's all, the what ifs. What would you leave our listeners with?
So if you've got an idea you've been noodling on, the first thing I would do is find people that you trust, people that you think will hype you up, and the opposite, people that you think will be concerned, and ask them, hey, I've been noodling on this idea. Would you help me build it? Can you help build this idea with me? Don't go
Mm,
in and ask them, what do you think about this idea? Because when you ask people, what do you think about this idea? All of their fears come to bay and they start saying, well, someone already tried that, didn't they? And they failed. Or, well, have you thought about this,
yeah.
this, and this? Or what are you doing? Why would you? So I think the way that you want
Wow.
to frame the question is, could you just humor me? Sit with me in this for a minute and help me build on the idea that I have. What do you think we could do with it? Look for like a yes and type conversation. Let it get really big, aggrandize it, let it
Yeah.
get out of control. Because what you can do later is you can always get reductive later. There's no problem in making your idea smaller. Believe me, that's the easy part. Let it get as big
Yeah.
as you can possibly get it. And then from there decide what part of this really excites me. What do I want to focus on? And then the second, oh, I'm sorry, what was your second question? I had an answer for it.
Well, and the fear part of it,
Ah,
right?
the fear.
The risk aversion, or what's that method? What do they do?
The risk aversion part, I think everybody's different in the way that they channel out the noise, right? And that's really what it is at the end of the day. You
Mhm.
don't, there's nothing, the fear is going to be there. You either decide to just like do it while you're scared or not,
It's
ultimately.
true.
But I think for me, one thing I like to remind myself, because once you decide and you start publicly saying that you're going to do something or you start doing it, there's going to be a lot of naysayers that are going to come your way or people with well intentioned fears for you, right? And I like to remind myself that if you're not doing something that I find inspiring, I'm not really interested in your opinion because there's so many people that have never taken a step in that direction, but will tell you
Mhm.
all day why not to do it or why your idea isn't good or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And so my mantra has been, are you doing something inspiring? Do I think what you're doing is cool? If not, I'm not really interested in your opinion.
Yeah.
I want the respect and opinions of people that I find inspiring.
Wow. Actually, now I'm having a moment because I'm thinking even like, with anxiety, with all like there's a lot of different emotions that everyone goes through in a given day. And this sort of answered the question to remedy all of the above.
Yeah, it really helps you cut through the noise, right?
It does.
Because if you find like Brene Brown is someone I love. If she was like,
Hmm.
your idea is garbage, I'd be like, yes, ma'am. Okay,
Yep.
where do we go from here?
Tear it up
We'll
and
tear it up and
that's it.
start again.
Yep.
But if other, like I will say, family members will be the ones that will shock you the most, where they will be the ones that might actually try to tear you down a lot. Not necessarily always out of ill intention, but just out of their own failed attempts.
Yeah.
They fear for you. And so you've got to really figure out a way to look at their life and say, has the life you led inspired me? Like one of my best friends said to me when I was thinking about making this leap was, okay, you're reading your book. You're reading a book about your life. You're the main character. Are you excited to read the next chapter? Are you cheering her on? Is that a chapter that you want to read? If not, then what are you doing if you don't want to flip the page, Because like at that point I was sitting in Zoom meetings all day and she's like, I don't want to read a
Mhm.
book about someone who's sitting in Zoom meetings all day. what do you want your character to do next? And I was like, oh,
Ooh.
I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I want my character to do next.
That's good.
I think she was very good. Yeah, I know. She knows what she's doing. She lives a very liberated life. I love it. But yeah, what do you want your character to do next?
Your character is up to grand old things. I cannot wait to read the next chapter.
Thank you.
And I thank your family for giving you the springboard to manifest all of this from hard work and taking action. And, as we wrap this episode, when I've always thought sort of when family comes with concern, this has been my go-to answer is I hear you, I understand you, I thank you, but I also need you to trust yourself that you raise someone who is capable of doing all of these things. Pat yourself on the back for a job well done, that you've instilled those traits, that bravery, that courage, that intelligence, that ambition. That's a big deal. So I thank you, and I need you to be proud of yourself too.
That's very good.
You
And
know?
what a way to diffuse a situation, Incredible. That's a really good one. I got to keep that in my back pocket.
Please do, really, because it's a sincere one, and then it just kind of shifts the perspective a bit, you
Yeah.
know?
Totally.
So,
See.
Reece, where can we find you? Where can we
Yes.
find Chachi's? Let's get these people out in the line that's already
Yes.
long. Where are we going?
Yes. So digitally, we're on Instagram, Eat Chachi's, and our website's the same, www.eatchachis.com. You can find us physically in San Pedro in Los Angeles. We are actually in the middle of expanding our business. So we will be at the corner of 25th and Western Street at 1436 West 25th Street in San Pedro as of July. So yeah, it's crazy. What a wild ride. Come have some sandwiches with us.
You better trust I will, and there's going to be a lot more people that will as well. Reece Soltani, you are an absolute light and a total inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Stephanie. The pleasure was mine, truly. Thank you so much.
Until next time, my
Till
friend.
next time.